From being a traveller to becoming a settler, immigrant families putting down roots in Hong Kong. What does the city mean to them? Do they identify themselves as Hong Kongers? Where is my motherland? Saturday at 6:30 on ViuTVSix. So teenagers deserve something super-duper fun.
Queen threw a slipper at me, again.
I'm all out of wolf skin.
Where be a wolf?
The sides of history that nobody teaches you in school.
Is that all?
Experience growing up in the force of nature.
We're taking it all the way to 74 miles an hour.
Evolutionary and revolutionary.
Let's do an experiment.
The most educational teen television that you can get. Weeknights at 8, only on ViuTV6.
Welcome back. A group of hostages freed by French commandos in Burkina Faso have made their first public appearance since being rescued. Special forces led an overnight raid in which they saved 2 French nationals as well as an American and South Korean, but 2 soldiers were killed in the operation. Dhruv Takeka reports.
The media's first glimpse of hostages freed by French commandos from militants in Burkina Faso. In a daring raid on Thursday night, French special forces liberated 2 Frenchmen kidnapped in neighboring Benin over a week earlier, as well as 2 women, an American and a South Korean, who were being held with them. 2 French soldiers, Cedric de Pierrepont and Alain Bertoncello, were killed in the operation.
First of all, our thoughts go to the families of the soldiers and the soldiers who lost their lives to free us from this hell. We wanted to present our condolences immediately to these families.
The 2 Frenchmen, Laurent Lassimouya and Patrick Pique, and the unidentified South Korean woman met with the Burkina Faso president at the presidential palace. The American, who's not been identified either, is being repatriated separately to the United States. French officials say it's not yet clear who'd kidnapped them, but describe their captors as, quote, terrorists who plan to hand them over to an al-Qaeda affiliate.
Well, at the bottom of the continent, South Africa's ruling African National Congress Party has been re-elected, but with a slimmer majority. The Electoral Commission says the ANC won 57% of the vote, but there was a fair blowback from voters who are fed up with political corruption. Edward Barron has more.
The majority party in the National Assembly of South Africa will be the African National Congress with 230 seats.
Confirmation Saturday that the African National Congress easily won South Africa's general election, but with a lower share of the vote. The Electoral Commission said the ruling ANC party won the majority of parliamentary seats with a 57.5% share. The ANC's victory secures it enough seats to give President Cyril Ramaphosa another 5 years in office. But the party was punished by voters for faltering efforts to address corruption, unemployment and racial disparities in housing, services and land distribution. The ANC's seats in the 400-member parliament fell to 230 from 249. The main opposition Democratic Alliance also saw its number of seats fall to 84 from 89.
More than 1 million Venezuelans have fled to Colombia as food and medical care become unaffordable and unavailable. And to deal with the influx, the UN has set up a one-of-a-kind camp to provide some shelter for the rising number of migrants. Jonah Green reports.
A staggering 1.2 million Venezuelans have fled to Colombia, and the country has until recently sought to avoid setting up camps to house these migrants in fear they may attract more and slow down integration into Colombian society. But a surge in the historically poor town of Maicao forced the local government to reach out to the UN, who set up this 60-tent camp, a temporary respite for beleaguered Venezuelan migrants fleeing their home, where hyperinflation has put basic food and medicine beyond reach.
My children went 3 days without eating anything.
Maria Moreno and her 6 children fled a month ago and are allowed to stay for 6 weeks at the camp.
I came because I told my husband that I couldn't take the situation anymore. You know it's hard when your son says, "Mom, I'm hungry," and there's not even salt water to give him.
The camp, the only one of its kind in Colombia, opened in March. The United Nations estimates that roughly a quarter of Venezuelans' 30 million people need humanitarian assistance. The camp's not home, but Danira Sierra, who's 38 weeks pregnant, says it's still better than the alternative.
I feel better than being out on the street. I'm safer. I have food. I don't have to be under the sun.
Colombia and UN officials made clear that the camp is temporary, an attempt to give the most vulnerable migrants housing as they prepare to continue their journey to other parts of the country or get jobs. But officials say it will remain open as long as it's needed and can be funded.
Well, hopes for peace are being revived in Yemen, where Houthi rebels have reportedly started withdrawing from a strategic port. This is part of a UN-sponsored deal that has been stalled for months, with hopes this is finally the beginning of the end of a brutal 4-year war. Francesca Lina reports.
Yemen's Houthi movement started withdrawing forces from Salif port in Hodeidah on Saturday, according to a Reuters witness, reviving hopes for peace efforts to end the 4-year war. Last year, the Saudi-backed government and the Iran-aligned Houthis made a pact to pull back troops from Hodeidah, a lifeline for millions of Yemenis. But the peace deal stalled for months amid deep mistrust among the parties, leaving Hodeidah port closed, blocking humanitarian aid from getting to millions of starving people. The UN has yet to confirm whether the withdrawal has begun, but the UN's Redeployment Coordination Committee said on Friday that the Houthis would make an initial unilateral redeployment between May 11th and May 14th. A minister in the Yemeni government dismissed the Houthi movement's pullout as a show meant to, quote, disinform the international community. The Reuters witness said a dozen trucks carrying Houthi fighters, armed with rocket-propelled grenade launchers and machine guns, had departed from Salif on Saturday. He also confirmed that the Coast Guards had since taken over. A UN report said that if the Yemen conflict were to end this year, it would have killed around 233,000 people. 56% of those being indirect deaths from lack of food, health services and infrastructure.
All right, stay with us. It's time for sport now. Let's start with tennis, because Stefanos Tsitsipas has pulled off one of the biggest wins of his career, beating clay court specialist Rafael Nadal in the semi-final of the Madrid Open. Nadal appeared to have the physical edge over his opponent in the second set. He'd also been playing doubles earlier, but Tsitsipas rallied with some very impressive court coverage in the final set. Nadal did manage to save 3 match points, but found the net on the fourth and eventually went down 6-4, 2-6, 6-3. Tsitsipas will play Novak Djokovic in the final. He beat Dominic Thiem.
It means the world. I'm really happy that I proved myself today. I played one of my best games this year. Really happy that I'm fighting. I'm in the zone, and I'm enjoying tennis at its fullest potential. It's really nice to be able to play this way, and today's victory is just an unbelievable feeling. I cannot explain it further.
Yeah, meanwhile, Kiki Bertens won the biggest title of her career, beating Simona Halep 6-4, 6-4 in the women's final. Bertens became the first woman to ever win the Madrid Championship without dropping a set. And she did it in style, coming back from 4-2 down in the first. Now, Halep could have regained her world #1 ranking with victory and did manage to save 2 championship points, but an errant backhand, as you saw there, eventually saw Bertens reign supreme in Madrid. To football now, and Borussia Dortmund have kept their title hopes alive with a hard-fought 3-2 win over Dusseldorf. Dortmund are now just 2 points behind Bayern Munich. A blunder from keeper Marwan Hitz let Dusseldorf back into the game at 1-1. But goals to Christian Pulisic, Thomas Delaney and Mario Götze proved enough to seal the win for the title contenders. There is now just 1 game left in the competition. Now, the reason Dortmund have closed the gap is because Bayern Munich stumbled to a goalless draw at RB Leipzig. A win would have sealed the Bundesliga title, but the Bavarians missed several good chances, and Leon Goretzka's title-winning goal was ruled out after a video review. Bayern will face a final day exam at home to Eintracht Frankfurt in this season's finale. Former England cricketer Andrew Flintoff is backing his country to win this year's World Cup. The tournament starts on home soil on May 30 when the hosts take on South Africa. Matt Goodrick caught up with Flintoff in London and began by asking him whether England is actually the real deal this time around.
I hope so. You look at the side on paper, England, and I think we're probably the best team in the world. We've got all bases covered. You know, there's a discussion at the minute about whether Archer should play. I'd have him in. But yeah, I think England, real chance. And we've seen like when England won the Rugby World Cup, the impact it had on the country for rugby. Football last year, we saw the Ashes 2005, and if England, you know, can do something, which I'm sure they can, I think it have a massive effect on cricket in this country.
And in your day, the Ashes was very much the main focus. Do you think that's shifted a bit now?
I think the Ashes is always going to be very special, just the rivalry and the magnitude of it. But I think World Cups, I think, have got bigger and bigger over the years. I really do. You know, the one-day game is relatively new, I suppose, in comparison to Test cricket, so it's always been catching up. But you look at India, you know, that India-Pakistan game, there could be 1 billion people watching that, and I'm going to be at Old Trafford watching. So, yeah, the excitement behind it and the interest is probably as big as it's ever been. And what better place to do it? We can put an event on.
And who do you see as England's main rivals for the title this summer?
It's a tough one, the World Cup, because it's all about who peaks at the right time. On paper, you'd imagine India, led by Kohli. Unbelievable. I never thought I would say I have seen a player who could be possibly better than Sachin Tendulkar. Well, he's that man. Australia, they're coming together all right. Warner and Smith back in the side, they got pace. They fare well in English conditions. Pakistan play tournament cricket well. West Indies have done historically over the past few years. So there's a few to go at. India, Australia, I think, possibly the big ones.
All right, that is it for now. Do make sure you join us for the late edition of ViuTV News. Good night.